Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. It is time for another mid-month wrap-up. We are halfway through February as of right now. It's the 15th when I'm filming this. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to put this up. Hopefully tonight, but we'll see. And I've already completed 9 books. I am going strong with the Get a Clue readathon, and I have completed all 4 of the room prompts that have dropped, as well as 2 bonus reads. And then I have 3 other reads that I've completed that haven't fit any of my spinner wheels yet, but I'm soon probably dropping down to a junior detective so I can read what I want. And if that's the case, then I can input all of these as just bonus points for my team. But here is what we're going to be talking about today. So let me jump right in and start with the prompts that I've read for each of the rooms and my bonus prompts. I don't remember the room title, like which rooms they were, but I'll remember the prompt. So the first prompt was to read a book with an adjective in the title. And so I read The Sweet Smell of Magnolias and Memories by Celeste Fletcher McHale. I'm glad I read this because it's from my Christian fiction shelf, and that is one of my goals this year, to read through books on that shelf a little more often. I also just want to pause and apologize for my voice. I'm at the end of getting over this cold, and it's just taking a long time to go away. So I'm a little rough. I'm a little rough in the voice today. But this was a good story. I think I'm giving it 3 stars because I think ultimately for me it's a bit forgettable. It takes place in Mississippi, along the Mississippi River, and we follow a woman who, a year before the events of this book, was trapped in a big flood on the roof with another guy. And they bonded and fell in love during the couple of days that they spent, or hours it might have even been, I don't remember, on the roof during this flood. She had tried to find him. He had given her contact information, but shortly after she was rescued off of the roof, her boat had a crash. And she was with another family, and it was a devastating, traumatic experience all around, and she had blocked some of the memories. Well, fast forward a year later, she is in the wedding of her best friend, and he, the guy, is the preacher. He's the one that's marrying her best friend. So they're able to reconnect, and it just is a process of her coming to grips with the memories as they come back. Like, connecting with him again has like triggered something in her brain, and she's able to remember things, and then trying to look up that family that was on the roof with them. And so it's a bit of a second chance romance. It's a bit of contemporary of this woman trying to come to grips with the trauma that she experienced, and also a found family type of a situation with the boys from this family that were on the roof with her and the other guy. So it was good. I really liked it. Actually, there was little to no faith elements other than the guy was a pastor, and he was kind of coming to grips with, am I doing what I'm supposed to right now? It wasn't a, do I believe what I believe anymore? It was just a question of purpose, and should I be a pastor or should I be doing something else? So there was a underlying element to the book, but it wasn't like very in your face, or it wasn't a big part of the storyline. So I liked it. But I didn't love it. I'm giving it 3 stars. The next prompt was to read a book with glass on the cover. And also my team had to do a secret passageway prompt, which was a book that was slightly intimidating in some way. So for that, I picked up Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Lord. All of these are windows. Windows are made of glass. So that's my glass. And I called this intimidating because I had started it a while ago and then sort of soft DNF'd it. It wasn't the right time, and so I was hesitant to pick it back up again, even though on the surface level it sounds like a book that I would really like. But when I first started reading it, I was not really invested or into it that much. This one was on my TBR because I pulled a prompt that I had to read a book that takes place over 150 years ago, and so this is a Regency era combined with like an Agatha Christie vibe. So it's like Bridgerton meets Agatha Christie. It was kind of fun in the long run. So in this book, we follow Lady Petra, who gets married and then her husband dies, and she's kind of left very wealthy, and she determines that she's not going to get married ever again, and she puts that out there. And so she kind of has this spinster status, even though it's a choice that she has made and not for lack of anybody wanting to marry her. So she's a little bit of a pariah in the social circles that she runs in, but She also gets involved when one of her friends is pronounced dead, but it's just there's something odd and weird about it. And so she decides she's going to investigate and ends up learning about this doctor who husbands and fathers and brothers can send their women to, and he runs like an asylum, a place of healing. She gets into some questionable circumstances and is investigating on her own this doctor and trying to figure out who he is, but in the process her life gets put in danger, and her family members are not too happy about the fact that she's proclaimed to be single forever and that she's wealthy and she kind of can get away with it, but she's also investigating what has happened, what's happening with the women who are disappearing, and are they dead? Are they not dead? What's going on? So it was a good mystery. I ended up really enjoying it by the end. I think I also gave this one 3 stars because it's not really memorable in my mind, but I did enjoy it while I'm reading. So I think I need to do a video about how I'm doing my ratings this year. I stress about it way too much. I'm probably 4 stars. I end up giving most things a 4 star. So it was good. I would recommend it. Yeah, it was a fun romp while I was reading it. Not as intimidating as I had expected. The next prompt was to read a book with a pattern on the cover. I think this was Kitchen. Was this Kitchen? Which is perfect that I read Mastering the Art of French Murder by Colleen Cambridge. I know I gave this one 4 stars. Really enjoyed this mystery. We follow Tabitha, who is good friends with Julia Child. And so there's a lot of foodie references in here for sure. But Tabitha and Julia get involved because somebody who is at a house party at Julia Child's house is found in the basement of her building, murdered the next morning. And Tabitha is among one of the first to discover this body, and she had ridden down in the elevator with her. They left the party at the same time. Tabitha lived across the street, so she just went home, but she was one of the last people to see this woman alive. And so everybody at the house party is kind of a suspect, and the police have suspicions on Julia and Tabitha, obviously, because they were there, but Tabitha and Julia know it's not them, and so Tabitha kind of does her own sleuthing to try to figure out which of these people really did the murder. There's a theater group involved in the whole thing, and it's set in Paris, and it's fun. And the narrator did a great job with Julia Child's voice and her big personality. She was a very tall woman and very boisterous, and I think the narrator did a great job doing the voice of Julia Child. So yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed that one as well. And this was a Once Upon a Book Club book box, so I got to open some fun treats along the way, which was super cool. The last room prompt that came out just a couple days ago was a book with elegance that has elegance in it. So it could be a wedding, a ball, whatever, a prom, royalty of some sort. And I chose to read A Lady's Guide to Etiquette and Murder. Look at the cover, like clearly they're at a ball. This is very elegant by Diane Freeman. This is one that was on my recommendations cart for this year, so I'm really excited. This is another one where we have a woman who's a widow, and so she's a wealthy member of society. In this one, she escapes to London from her husband's family home, like the manor, because her brother-in-law and his wife are constantly trying to get her money because she's very wealthy in her own right, and it's not family money of his, it's her money. So she helped take care of the house and all of that while her husband was alive. But once he died, which he died in a very nefarious way, he was with a mistress at the time of his death. So she learns that and just really kind of wants to separate herself completely. So she buys herself a house in town in London, and then is approached by a policeman at one point because someone had sent an anonymous letter that perhaps she's involved in the death of her husband. And so there's a mystery there. Her sister comes from America to have her season in London, and she's sponsoring her young sister. And so she's also trying to investigate these men, but there's just questions about everybody. So there's lots of different types of mysteries going on at the same time. It was a fun story. It's not going to be an all-time favorite of the year, but I really enjoyed reading it. It just was a fun, cozy-ish Victorian era mystery. In a similar vein to this one, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Lord, because we're also following another single lady who has her own wealth and is accused of doing something that she didn't. So she's determined to try to figure out on her own what happened. And of course, there's a handsome next door neighbor who has had some interactions with this woman in the past, and there's a little bit of a romance blossoming between the two of them, which is really fun. I liked it very much. Very, very much. And then I had 2 bonus books. I got to spin the wheel when I finished a prompt before the next prompt was dropped. I spun the wheel, and the first one I got was, I think, Set in the Past or the Future. That's what it was. And I read Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This is a fantastic read. It's a classic for a reason. I really enjoyed this. We're following an older woman looking back on her life and telling her story. Is it a hard read, of course, at times, but also told with wisdom and love and beauty. And I really just enjoyed this so much. And I liked it because the woman telling her memoir, basically her life story, she had reason to be full of anger and bitterness and hatred. And yet she just had so much grace and forgiveness and kindness, and just told her story in such a beautiful way. The writing was gorgeous. The story was impactful. And I definitely loved this one very much. So I'm glad that I finally read that. That was one of my Christmas book exchange books. And I'm glad that I got the opportunity to read it. And it was a recommended book for this year as well. And then the last prompt that I spun the wheel for was a busy cover. And so I read Hava by Tosca Lee. This is the story of Eve. It's a biblical fiction retelling of Eve, who was the first woman, one of the first humans at all, the second human to be created. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I will be doing a 5-star prediction wrap up of this and the other 2 books that I got for Christmas this past year in my Christmas book exchange with my BookTube besties. So this is the 3rd book. I've read all 3 of them now. I'm very pleased that I'm keeping up with my Christmas book exchange books. I will say that what I love about reading biblical fiction is how it just humanizes, allows me to empathize with these biblical characters who were real people. But when you read their Bible stories in the Bible, sometimes you forget, like, this was a real human being who lived on earth and experienced this stuff. And so imagine living in paradise, in brand new creation, exploring the world, like connecting with each other and the animals. Like Adam and Eve were truly one. They were truly connected in the garden. And then because of their sin, because they gave into temptation, they were evicted from the garden and have to now strive and work for everything. And nothing is perfect anymore. Sin has tainted everything. And so what must it have been like to have this super close connection in the garden and now have questions and not understand each other well and like marital issues and learn how to build a fire and farm the land and eat animals for the first time because they didn't do that in the garden. Like, or who knows if they really did or not. I don't know. But like how to make pottery, how to build a house, like all of these things that they had to learn to do that they didn't have to do while in paradise in the Garden of Eden. And then how the whole world begun to be populated. Like, just the idea of it is just so mind-boggling to me. There's still so many questions. Obviously, this is fiction. This is not the inspired word of God. It's just fiction, but it allows my mind to wonder about these people in that time and empathize in a way that is fresh and new and encourages me to go back to the Bible to read it again. I will say that it took me a minute to get into this one, but I will share the rest of my thoughts about this book specifically in that 5-star predictions wrap up coming up, I don't know, next week, like right at the end of February. So there's that one. That's all my Get a Clue books. But then I do have 3 nonfiction that I finished this month. The first one is The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning by Margareta Magnusson. This is part of one of my 5 goals for the year, which is like declutter is the big goal. But one of the things underneath that was that I wanted to read this book. And I did. I liked it. It was like a 3-star read for me. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't anything earth-shattering or mind-blowing or like super practical that I could take away. But just the idea of decluttering our things now so that when we die, someone else doesn't have to do it. And I liked that idea. I like that thought process. So she goes through different topics, different areas of your house, different like cookbooks, family recipes, photographs, clothing, furniture, knickknacks from travels. Like she kind of goes through a lot of different areas and how she went through her own process of doing her own death cleaning. and giving things away. And so I liked it. It was a quick, short, little read. But I liked it, but I didn't love it. But it did give me stuff to think about. So that's good. And then I read The Plan by Kendra Adachi. This is like a time management book. And I gotta say, I love her voice in here. It's very similar to her voice in The Lazy Genius and Lazy Genius Kitchen. Very approachable, very like you feel like you're talking to a friend. However, I don't feel like I took away as many practical ideas from this one as I did from the others. And her big point at the beginning is that as women, we think about things and life differently, in part because we have a cycle within our own bodies that we experience from month to month, and we have different levels of energy because of that cycle, and just that we think about things differently than men do. And yet almost all of productivity habit, like almost all productivity time management type books are written by men for men. And so she's kind of giving a different way to approach time management, to approach making to-do lists, to approach all of those things. And I feel like I've adapted like typical time management ideas and skills and approaches to fit me. And so I didn't know how I would apply some of the things that she talked about in here. I think it was very good, and I loved her voice. I would recommend it to people. So I'm giving it 4 stars because I would still recommend it because I really like Kendra Adachi. I like her stories. I like the personal way that she writes to the reader. But I don't know how much I'm going to actually take away from it to use in my life. So it was good, but not great. But finally, my favorite book that I've read so far this month, and I'm putting it in my basket for a possible favorite of the year, is The Reading Promise by Alice Ozma. This is My Father and the Books We Shared. And this is just a memoir of Alice and her father and the time that they spent reading together every day for 3,000 plus days. They had made a challenge for themselves when she was about 8 or 9 years old to read together for 1,000 days. And they carried it on every single day until she left for college. So it was over 3,000 something days. I forget the total number, but this book is not a chronicle of every book that they read, but it is set up more like a memoir, kind of talking about the different little aspects of things from their life throughout the time that they read together. So each chapter is labeled like day 440, but it's not necessarily what book they're reading at that time, but this was like around Thanksgiving. So there's a story about Thanksgiving and the family. And what I do love about this is she loves her father so much, but her father is not put on a pedestal in this story. Like, he's not this idealized version of her father. She portrays him and herself in a very realistic human light with flaws and all. And I really appreciated that because it just showed, I mean, her love for him was so clear, but he wasn't a perfect guy. And her parents, like, she is a child of divorce. So at some point during this whole project, her parents got divorced, and the struggles that brought to their challenge with each other, but also like it just in general in life. I just really appreciated the humanity, it felt so real. But I loved the stories that she shared, the being embarrassed by her dad. She was at a play practice and it was running really, really late, and it was almost midnight, and they had to do their reading each day before midnight. So her dad like showed up to play practice and like took her out to the parking lot, and they did it in the parking lot. Oh my goodness. And she was so embarrassed, and which is so typical of a teenager, being embarrassed by parents. I don't know. It just felt so relatable. And also nostalgic. Like, I remember so much my parents reading to me when I was a kid, and how important that was, and how much I treasure those memories and that time together. And so how special for this girl, Alice, to have all of these memories of everyday reading with her dad. I just really loved it. And I do love that at the back, they say they have a list of the books they read, and they're like, this may not be a fully comprehensive list because they did not keep a list while they were doing it. They were just trying to remember. But yeah, it just highlights the importance of being read aloud to and reading together, and how it impacted her relationship with her dad. Fabulous. This was a 5-star read for me and my favorite of the month so far. And that is it. These are the books that I've read so far in February. I would love to chat with you about any of these ones or one of your favorite reads that you've read so far this month. I I'm loving February's reading so far. I feel like it's been a lot of variety, a lot of murder mysteries, which I'm here for, but also like a classic and some nonfiction and a biblical fiction and yeah, a little bit of everything. I'm so excited to continue my reading throughout the rest of the month. And I hope that you are reading a good book as well. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your day with me. I really appreciate you being here. You're so important to me and to this channel, and I'm so grateful for you. If you have made it this far, but you don't really have anything to share in the comments, but you want to let me know that you were here, put a little stack of books emoji. I know there's a little stack of books. Put a little stack of books emoji for my favorite book so far this month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye.